Next, from Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. During Monday's session of the Knesset, he spoke about Israeli military action in southern Lebanon. Other speakers include Likud party leader Benjamin Netanyahu. In 13 days of rocket and bombing exchanges between Israel and Hezbollah, more than 150 people have been killed in Lebanon.
The Knesset Speaker Shevach Weiss is evicting Tamar Gozhansky, the Knesset member, from the hall because she was interrupting the proceedings. And she will not be allowed to participate in the whole session here. Prime Minister Peres is starting his speech. He's saying, I would like to express to the residents of the Galilee Panhandle and of the north from Kiryat Shmona to Nahariya that the hardship that they're experiencing now, sleeping nights, spending days in the shelters, they deserve our praise. Knesset members, our main aim is to return to those good residents in the north the security there as in the rest of Israel, free from the fear and the tension that they were going through, to assure their natural right to go out in the day without worry, to send their kids to school without any kind of threat or danger. This is our commitment. Give the ministers of the government to have top priority to carry out the operations necessary in the front, on the front. We are meeting with those officials in the north to discuss possible solutions, to try to aid them during the days of this campaign. The government has decided to give compensation to the people and businesses of the north that have been damaged by this campaign. The city, Kiryat Shmona, which has lost a lot, will get top priority to help them return to their normal life. It's a very well-rounded program in the north. There will be many hundreds of millions of shekels dedicated for this purpose in order to provide emergency services to those near the front. I'd also like to talk about the very popular spirit that has swept Israel at this time. Institutions, companies, individuals, simple people, average people from throughout the country have opened up their hearts and their homes to the residents of the north with warmth, with a deep sense of partnership and brotherhood. Because of them, a tough time experienced by the residents of the north has been made a little bit better, and they deserve our thanks. Knesset members, we have not entered into Grapes of Wrath campaign because of any rejoicing, any wish for war. This government does not have to do anything to prove its wish to make peace with its neighbors, to follow the notion of trying to achieve peace. This operation is necessary specifically and especially to save the peace. It is fulfilling a national commitment for defending the country on the one hand, and also to defeat those that want to defeat the peace process. Iran, Libya, Iraq, Hamas, and the Islamic Jihad and the Hezbollah, who are attempting to destroy the peace process. The Hamas worked within the State of Israel since the Sharm el-Sheikh conference in Egypt. The operations in South Lebanon without provocation has been entered into by the Hezbollah. People, suicide bombers, hang gliders with explosives have been sent into Israel. This escalation of the Hezbollah with Iran's support shows an arrogance of their leadership. We have tried diplomatically before we entered any military campaign. We have not turned to weaponry until after the other options were explored. All the diplomatic avenues did not get anywhere, so we saw no alternative to the military operation which took place right around Passover time. The campaign had certain defined and specific aims. Full peace can be achieved only through diplomatic negotiations between Israel and Lebanon, Israel and Syria. I hope that the process will continue soon, the peace process. I dealt for many years with the issue of security, and I am well learned with campaigns to know that military operations are sometimes essential. I know well that when I was Prime Minister, I withdrew the Israeli army from the Lebanon quagmire in 1985, and I have no intention to return to that situation. The Israeli government has no intention of expanding the security strip in Lebanon or to hurt the Lebanon or Lebanese or Syrian army. The Operation Grapes of Wrath is an operation that is not limited in terms of time. The aim, as expressed, is to bring quiet to the residents of the north, to stabilize the north in South Lebanon, to stop the Katyushas from landing in Israel, and to renew the peace process. Press on the use of sophisticated, developed weaponry and shows the IDF's advancement, their qualitative edge, the use of the combination of Judaism, technology, information, humanitarianism. The government determined that it would not hit civilian targets and that it must be focused only on hitting Hezbollah. This direction exists, but in military fact, as much as we try to avoid it, sometimes some screw-ups happen when perfectly innocent citizens are hurt and are hit. We behaved, as we know, at the beginning to get the civilian population of Lebanon away from the fire so that it would not be hurt. The Hezbollah, unfortunately, in opposition to this, took an opposite view because of their cynical cruelty. It hid within the civilian and refugee population and shot from that spot into Israel in order to draw fire to within the civilian population and to their detriment. This is first of all, a human tragedy. But it was not It was not directed as such. It was not supposed to be so. But it happened in a fighting situation, and it shot. Our people shot out of self-defense. We are in an organized, responsible way are investigating this situation, and the results of the investigation will be brought to the Knesset Foreign Affairs Committee and to the government. This terrible tragedy of Kfar Kana shows that Lebanon, the whole situation is fully the responsibility and to the blame of Hezbollah and terrorist organizations. Also, the residents of the Galilee are suffering. And the fact is that if there will not be quiet on this side of the border, on the Israeli side, there will not be quiet on the other side. A military war must be two-sided, and quiet peace must be two-sided on both sides. The Hezbollah has been fighting the Israeli army, the South Lebanese army in South Lebanon. The Hezbollah has been seeking immunity from strikes because it's been hiding in civilian centers. There's absolutely no immunity for terrorists at all, anywhere. Beirut will not be treated any differently than Kiryat Shmona. Tyre will not be treated differently than Nahariya. And Sidon will not be treated differently than Nahariya. If there are Katyushas sent into Kiryat Shmona, there will also be trouble for Beirut. If there is quiet and peace for all of these other cities in Israel in the north, there will also be quiet for Beirut, Tyre, and Sidon. We are stretching out our arms for peace. Peres is asking one of his hecklers, can you shield Kiryat Shmona, Tel Aviv? What are you talking about? And the Knesset Speaker, Shavach Weiss, is now also warning the Knesset member, Hashem Mahmoud, from the Chadash party, to also keep quiet. He says he is asking him for the third time to be quiet. Now I have to ask you to leave. The narrator is saying that the Knesset member, Mr. Mahmoud, is being kicked out of the hall. He's saying that the other members of the Arab parties, Talab Bassana and Mr. Darasha, have not appeared yet in the hall. Those parties are not represented in this session. They basically would not appear during the whole session. The Israeli army, Peres is saying, has been targeting the specific spots where Hezbollah is located, as opposed to the villagers in South Lebanon, because we don't want them to be hurt by the fighting. When this campaign is completed, the villagers of South Lebanon will be urged to return to their homes, and life will return to normal as it will in the Galilee in Israel. We are not the enemies of the Shiite population in South Lebanon. We don't want bad for them. We have nothing against them. We want peace and good neighborliness among our sides. Mr. Speaker, Israel has not conquered the security zone in Lebanon. It's that Lebanon has forsaken that zone. Israel is in that region because it needs to maintain its security. There are circumstances that are not the best circumstances in that part of Lebanon. Lebanon is fragmented, and it shouldn't be in terms of its military. It is got several militias. For more than 20 years, our border with Israel was the most quiet of all our borders, and friendly relations were established between people on both sides of the border, the Israelis and Lebanese. The announcer is saying that Mr. Taleb Bissana, who's the man on the left in the glasses from the Arab Democratic Party, suddenly entered the hall. He was not sitting down in his seat during the session. He just appeared to make this point, and without even being seated during the session, he'll be kicked out. The Knesset speaker, also in the background, is telling him to quiet down. The announcer is saying that these members, the Arab members who are being kicked out now, he's now the second one, are trying to express their extremism so that they can appeal to their own constituency. This is Knesset Speaker Shavach Weiss who's saying, I've asked for order 3 times. Please leave right now. The announcer is saying that the other prominent Arab member of the Knesset, Mr. Darashi, Abdul Wahab Darashi, will probably do the same. He'll come in at some point and create some interruptions and then get thrown out as well for the same reasons. The speaker is also asking Knesset member Limor Livnat to quiet down, and now to Michael Eitan, who you see there in the white shirt, to stop shouting. Peres is saying that the Lebanese government forsook that part of Lebanon to the terrorists and gave up its own sovereignty in Lebanon. This forsaking tells us that the residents of the Israeli north, that we would not have had to take the security zone that we have in Lebanon if the Lebanese government Michael Eitan is still interrupting, so the Knesset speaker is warning him again to keep it down. He's telling him to sit down. We don't take votes in the midst of speeches. Not in the middle of anybody's speech. The announcer is saying that now the rightists, as opposed to the Arab members that were kicked out, now the rightists are making their mark in the hall of the Knesset. Peres is saying, I again declare that we never, and now never, have any territorial demand on Lebanon. We do not want its land nor its water. The international border is accepted by us. We have no plan to stay in its territory without any need. I again call on the Lebanese government to conduct negotiations with Israel that will be based on Lebanese territorial sovereignty, to dismantle the militias in Lebanon, the armed militias. The Lebanese government in the last few years has made a very impressive, plenty of effort to reconstruct Lebanon, the land of the Cedar land, after many years of civil war. But all these efforts are liable to turn into chaos if Lebanon will continue to allow militias that are armed to strike against Israel. A peace between Israel and Lebanon is natural, positive, and can happen if Lebanon becomes a free, sovereign state. There is no argument between the countries. On the contrary, the history of relations between Israel and Lebanon show or Israel and the Arab world show the possibility of commerce interchange between the countries if Lebanon returns to its place in the Middle East. If there is not peace between Israel and Lebanon, this is not Israel's fault. And it is also not the fault of Lebanon, but rather those militias that receive their orders from elsewhere. Hezbollah is present in Lebanon. The villages that Hezbollah operates from is really under Iranian occupation. As long as Lebanon will not free itself from Iranian occupation, it will not be sovereign. It cannot live in peace in such conditions. The Iranian Revolution is a sad occurrence. It has failed completely. It has been marked by violence, despair, lack of hope. That its ultimate expression has been terrorism. Hezbollah, as well as Hamas, and the Islamic Jihad organization are emissaries, really, of the Iranian regime that represents terror, murder, that threatens the peace of the world. Iran of our days is an enemy of peace because the Ayatollah regime is in need of an enemy in order to justify its existence. It does not have freedoms. Freedoms and free expression threaten their own existence. Hatred and enmity, dedicating oneself to death, one's own death. The ideology of terrorism. The peace process in the Middle East is an enemy of Khomeiniism. They are afraid of peace and are involved in great efforts to subvert the peace process. They have no limits. And not abiding by basic agreements between peoples. They have no chance and cannot reverse the wheels of history. This is a losing war against peace. They will finally, eventually, go back down the steps of history. We are not the enemy of Iran, the Iranian people. The Ayatollah's regime is the enemy. Until the Khomeini revolution, we had good cooperative relations between Israel and Iran. The Jewish nation remembers from long ago how the King Koresh invited the Jewish people back to the land of Israel. Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt that the people sent on terrorist missions are sent by Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, will spare no effort to hurt us, to hit us, to subvert the peace process. We will not let them reach their goals. But I cannot promise 0 deaths, 0 casualties. Israeli intelligence will continue putting in all efforts to not let their goals be realized. Our security people will keep trying to arrest the Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists, to find them, to cut off the supply of arms. They are the enemies of peace. Arafat is not shielding us, and we are not shielding him. He is protecting himself. He's protecting peace. They want to topple him as much as they want to topple us. As long as the Palestinian Authority will succeed, so the atmosphere will be improved for the beginning of negotiations between us and Palestinians on the final status, and the pursuit of peace are two sides of the same coin. Such as terror will increase, peace will also come close. Israel will spare nothing to achieve peace. I have said that Operation Grapes of Wrath will not be stopped because of impatience. So we can understand that we also don't want to pursue this operation for no reason. We are pursuing all avenues to return security to the north. From obvious reasons, I cannot detail for you exactly now what the discussions are like between Jerusalem and the relevant capitals of the Middle East. The serious negotiations that are going on now between us and Secretary of State Warren Christopher, who is shuttling between Jerusalem and Damascus, who will turn it this evening from Damascus to Jerusalem. I can promise the Knesset that this government will not shy away from the goals of Operation Grapes of Wrath, and we will not agree to the return to the situation that existed on the eve of this campaign. Our aspiration is peace, not war, friendship, not enmity, good neighborliness, and not conquest. Israel will keep its diplomacy of peace with security. We will not forsake either peace or security. Only a strong Israel can reach the goal of peace. The strength of the Israeli Defense Forces, with its sophisticated weaponry, modern weaponry, the high morale, the high motivation of the officers has proven itself again in Operation Grapes of Wrath, and it will give us peace with security. Mr. Speaker, the goal of this campaign is to return security to the north of the country and peace to the entire region. The Speaker is saying, I thank the Prime Minister. He's allowing Yitzhak Levy, the Knesset member from the National Religious Party, who attempted to... He is saying that Mr. Bassana called Mr. Peres a killer of children. God forbid that we call this Prime Minister a killer of children, although we do disagree with him in certain ways. People have been sent to prison for a lot less than this. Rabbis have been sent to prison for less than this. I demand of the Knesset, from the Speaker, to ask immediately from the State's Attorney to remove Mr. Bassana's immunity as a Knesset member from prosecution. Thank you. I'd like to respond. When people scream, I hear it all. Had I heard it at the time, I would have said exactly what I'm saying now. You know the parliamentary procedure for all Knesset members and all Israeli citizens can use all the tools of government. I didn't hear what you heard. I'm not refuting you. I condemn such statements. Any kind of pollution of this sort in this hall, I absolutely, totally condemn this. We have bitter experience with this kind of division in this country. All the legal avenues are open to you to carry this out. The announcer is saying that actually Mr. Basana's original heckling from the hall was hard to hear, so he doesn't actually know himself whether Mr. Basana did say what Mr. Levy accused him of saying, calling Mr. Peres a killer of children. I'd like to speak a little bit about the calendar here at the Knesset. Friends, after he's talking about the upcoming procedure in the Knesset. He's talking about the time factor in this session. I invite Knesset member Benjamin Netanyahu to deliver his speech. Mr. Katsav on the left evidently suffered a loss in the family, and so Mr. Weiss, the speaker, was expressing his condolences on behalf of the Knesset, even though he said it's not exactly the best time, but still, I'd like to do it now, he said. Mr. Netanyahu, the Likud leader, is noting the fact that when he's giving this speech that night, meaning Monday night, was the beginning of Israeli Memorial Day, and how Israel is united as one on such a day with those who suffered losses, of those who gave up their lives on behalf of ours. There's a terrible sorrow that accompanies such families, and especially on Memorial Day, when these soldiers gave their lives in these campaigns. They were responsible for our victories over our neighbors, over our enemies, and has brought them to pursue peace, to go along with peace with Israel. On this Memorial Day, there are shells in the north. The Hezbollah has hit our citizens in the north. Finally, the government decided to do something. The root cause of the situation have to do with understandings that were done at the end of Operation Accountability in the summer of 1993. Those were not the best understandings. They basically said that as long as Hezbollah cannot hit our settlements and we cannot hit targets of Hezbollah within Lebanese settlements, so therefore we took action. The These understandings gave permission for Hezbollah basically to attack our soldiers. So the fighting started on the roads, at posts, and with great chutzpah, they attacked the fences in different patterns, different ways, ceaselessly. These understandings from 1993 led to unremitting attacks against our soldiers. It was a question of time that until this price, which cost 60 lives of Israeli soldiers in Lebanon since this 1993 understanding. So therefore, Hezbollah saw the situation, saw this policy, these understandings. It crossed the line. It started hitting our settlements, not days or weeks, but many months ago. These attacks occurred through these understandings. I must say that I never understood why this happened. Anyone that thinks that Mr. Assad, the president of Syria, that Arafat would put down terrorism, we're hearing this again today after the head of the Shabak, the Israeli Security Services, Mr. Carmi Gilon, said that Arafat is not suppressing terrorism. These same people
אתה הצטרפת אתמול לשלום עכשיו, קורא חבר הכנסת מירום אל עבר נתניהו. אתמול הצטרפת לשלום עכשיו, הוא מתייחס לדברים שאמר נתניהו לגבי המשך תהליך השלום והקווים של הליכוד לגבי המשך תהליך השלום.
Chagai Mirom of the Labour Party is now attacking Netanyahu for saying this in light of what he had said the day before on the peace process, which evidently was a bit more positive. The same conception, the government continued, and the Hezbollah understood this as a weakness. And so the result was even more Katyusha rockets, a rain of Katyushas. Speaker Weiss is calling on Minister Chaim Ramon to quiet down. We understand your principle, he's saying, but please, I have to call for order. He's now again telling Mirom, we've heard what you've had to say and I must call for order now. Enough. Please don't bring about a situation where I have to remove a minister from the hall. He's again telling another member to quiet. He's disturbing, now you're disturbing, you're making it worse. At the left now we see the mayor of Jerusalem, Ehud Olmert, who is also, he's both mayor of Jerusalem and a Knesset member from the Likud party. On the right is Mr. Ben Elisar, also the Likud party. Netanyahu is continuing. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Olmert on the left again, the mayor of Jerusalem, who's from the Likud party, is evidently shouting back and forth with Mr. Mirom of Labour. Mr. Speaker, I find myself in a very interesting situation when ministers of the government if you're asking, we never will rely on Arafat, that he will protect us, on Assad, that he will protect us. These understandings in Lebanon caused the situation now in Lebanon. I was in Kiryat Shmona for 2 days. before this operation began a few weeks ago, I entered the house, a house that was hit by Katyusha rockets. There was a big hole in the ceiling, and it went into the bedroom. The rocket went into the bedroom. I went outside, saw a kid. When there was instructions to be inside, I asked a 5-6-year-old kid, "Why are you not in your shelters? You're supposed to be in the shelter." He said, "I can't do it anymore. I can't stay in the shelter anymore." This was the universal sense of all the people in the north that cannot suffer like this anymore. They can't spend any more time in the shelters, in the bomb shelters. We're now looking at Abdulwahab Darasha of the Arab Democratic Party, a leftist party, an Arab resident of the north of Israel. And at the end, Netanyahu is saying, he's saying it's at too late a date, the government finally decided to do something. Mr. Netanyahu is urging Shevach Weiss, who's actually from the other party, to do your job and keep the quiet here. And so now Weiss, of course, is responding to Netanyahu's remarks. Members of the Knesset, since this operation began, the Likud has supported it fully. Just a month and a half before the elections, we did not operate from any campaign-motivated reasons. We looked for a full national consensus behind the Israeli army fighting against Hezbollah, so that we can make clear to the residents of the north, from Kiryat Shmona to Nahariya, that they are not alone, that we are all united around the wish to secure their peace, their security. We wanted to support the Israeli soldiers in their work up there. I must say that the suffering of the residents of the north is very great. Many thousands of families have left their homes. Different businesses, schools were abandoned. More than 1,000 homes were hit in Kiryat Shmona. I want you to understand what it is within 48 hours to have everything destroyed, to leave your home, to have to stay in a guest house or in a home of relatives in the more south in the country. I want to tell you, Mr. Prime Minister, one of the main goals that the government must demand now is to help the residents of the north. I didn't hear steps that you will take now. For example, giving those cities, those towns, status of development towns so that they will get more benefits, more compensation for their suffering, to allow them at this time to live as close to normal or sufferable lives as they can live. This gives me a great deal of pride. I did not hear one person in the bomb shelters, anyone in the Kiryat Shmona, not even the people that are now in Tel Aviv, stop this campaign on our behalf. I'm proud of that. We are, like most citizens of Israel, saying, continue. We must do so in order to bring peace, security, and calmness to the north. Basically, there was not any military operation in the history of Israel recently, in the last few years, where the government benefited from such strong support as this time. Because we hope for quiet in the north. not like what existed before for our brothers in the north. This operation should not be canceled. This operation must continue. We cannot allow the strength, the arms of these terrorist groups like Hezbollah to return to what they were before. Or for the residents of Kiryat Shmona should live under such conditions, should be hostage to such terrorists, to suffer the bombings of such katyushas. This operation, Grapes of Wrath, must not fail. We must not return to the situation where we did not have security in the north before this operation. We cannot return to the understandings of 1993. If we do so, we'll return to a sense of insecurity, of the attacks against the Israeli Defense Forces and the citizens of the north. The government must fulfill what it itself promised, that this operation will bring about a new set of rules for South Lebanon. Speaker of Knesset, Shevach Weiss is again calling on the other members that are interrupting to not interrupt. He says, you say, enough already. Mr. Speaker, the government must do what it itself promised to do, that this operation brings about a new set of understandings in Lebanon. Some members of the Israeli army are coming into the hall now. They'll have meetings in the next few days with the President of Israel. Netanyahu is saying that we cannot return to the situation that existed before, to the understandings that were brokered before. We cannot return to a situation where Israel will be hit while Iran and Syria, the Hezbollah terrorists that operate on their behalf, that a military operation should be undertaken only for the government to halt it, so that the terrorists can just resume what they were doing before. I know that there was a terrible tragedy. None of us, when I saw those pictures from Lebanon, Mr. Knesset member, my heart was torn, as if it were a Jewish kid. There was no difference. When a child is hurt, whether it's a Jewish, Christian, Arab, Muslim. But this is a rule that happens in the most justified wars. In 1944, the Allies went to bomb a Gestapo headquarters near Copenhagen. They made a mistake, but 64 kids were killed. This happens in all wars. It happened in the Gulf War, where the Americans that bombed also made mistakes. It happens in Israeli wars. It's happening now. It doesn't happen on purpose. And with all the best of intentions, Knesset Speaker Weiss is again saying that he is calling on Mr. Darasha to keep quiet. Mr. Darasha, I have asked you once. If you want, I'll do it a second or a third time. I don't want to kick you out. This is not permitted. I'd like to let you speak. I am displaying incredible patience, but there's a limit. Mr. Speaker, no one in the most justified of wars, when such tragedies occur, none of those wars were halted because or as a result of such tragedies. I said that this government has benefited from an unprecedented support from us, and I know that there's support from that there's pressure from the PLO, from PLO supporters who stand up against this pressure. I want to say that if there were a Likud government in power, I know what you would be doing. I know what you've done, your party, Labour Party. You would have asked for commissions of inquiry. You would have called for the defense minister that dedicated all their lives for Israel's defense. That you would have called them war criminals, killers of children. And we're talking about people that are heroes of Israel. But we are not behaving in such a way. We are giving you our support. You have no justification not to continue operating in Lebanon. Netanyahu is telling Knesset member Ron Cohen that you're not even embarrassed enough to keep quiet.
קריאת ביניים של חבר הכנסת רן כהן, אתם נותנים גיבוי רק למלחמה, לא לשלום.
The announcer is saying that Ron Cohen is screaming at Netanyahu that you're saying that you support war but not peace. You're supporting fighting but not peace.
לשון מאוד, הייתי אומר, לא פרלמנטרי.
אני קרא לך לסדר פעם שלישית, נעזוב. אני קרא לך לסדר, חבר הכנסת דדי צוקר, אני קרא לך לסדר פעם ראשונה. חברת הכנסת נעמי חזן, פעם ראשונה לסדר. נא לצאת החוצה. וההתבטאויות שלך הן פשוט חצופות. אתה רוצה שגם לך נקרא לסדר? אתה רוצה שקרא לך לסדר גם לך? נא לצאת החוצה.
Ron Cohen is now kicking Ron Cohen out of the hall of the Knesset.
Secretary of State Warren Christopher has been traveling between Syria and Israel in hopes of getting both sides to agree to a ceasefire. 150 people have been killed in 13 days of rocket and bombing exchanges in southern Lebanon.